On behalf of SIRC, it is our great pleasure to welcome you all to the Sri S. Vaidyanath Aiyar Memorial Lecture. I now request Vice President CA Revathi S. Ranganathan and our Chief Guest Dr. CA M.R.Venkatesh sir to occupy the dais. I also request members to rise up for the ICI motto song.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तदेव शुक्रब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते अमृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यति कश्चन एतद्वैता 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 एतद्वैता.
Thank you. I thank you so much for joining us today. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the distinguished members on stage, Vice Chairperson CA Revathi S. Ranganathan and Dr. M.R.Venkatesh, Chartered Accountant and also an advocate of Supreme Court. Without further ado, I request Vice Chairperson CA Revathi S. Ranganathan ma'am to address the gathering and share her insight about the legacy of Sri S. Vaidyanath Aiyar.
Thank you very much, Vishnu. Very warm welcome to CA Advocate M.R. Venkatesh sir, who is fondly known as MRV across everywhere. Before I start, I would like to request everyone to come forward, please. Looks sadly empty from here. Sir is going to give us a very riveting talk about tax, democracy and civilization, which kind of triggers our thought processes. Yeah, thank you. So when I asked sir, was this topic suggested by you? He said yes, tax, democracy and civilization. Yeah, taxes are always viewed rather suspiciously by civilizations, and we also deal with a lot of resistance from people. When we say you have to pay tax, they'll tell you please try and reduce as much as is possible. And this brings to mind this Chanakya's oft repeated quote, king should tax his subjects like how a bee sucks honey from the flowers painlessly. But nobody views it as painless, and the downfall and rise of civilizations to a very large extent is actually, I think, determined by how they are taxed or what is the revenue of the governments. I would say, rather than how they are taxed, what is the revenue which is generated by the governments. And of course, taxation is one of the main sources of revenue, whether it's direct or indirect, and that goes, there's not much of a difference there. of course, now as economic policies and economics develops, we say that, the more that the direct tax contribution to a country, the more developed it is, right? That is how my understanding is, because you see, in India we have hardly 4% of the population paying income tax, whereas if you go to a developed nation like the US or the European nations, it's more than 70% is the direct tax proportion to the tax revenues. So obviously, the fact that our country needs to move up from the fifth or the fourth to the top, where we are seeing the 45 trillion economy 2047, Viksit Bharat, everywhere we have a role to play in the direct tax collections, even though the government is actually doing a lot of methods to broaden the tax base. We as chartered accountants are going to play a role. Of course, I'm diverging now from the topic which Sir has given as tax democracy and civilizations. I don't think that any normal citizen will actually agree that there is any kind of democracy involved in taxation, right? I think all of us will agree that there's absolutely no democracy which is actually involved in taxation. And so we'll wait to see how, in Bharatanatyam there is this terminology called as korvai, So we're waiting to see how you're going to codify the tax democracy with the civilization. So I'm sure it's going to be really very thought-provoking, and this is going to be one of, I would say, the best in series or talks of S. Vaidyanath Aiyar Memorial Lecture. As you may all know, I'll just give you a brief about S. Vaidyanath Aiyar. He was a president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants during the year 1957-58, and he passed away in harness in 1958. And to commemorate all his contributions, the institute itself initiated this Vaidyanath Aiyar Memorial Fund through voluntary contributions from members. And since 1963, there have been lectures in his memorial. I would say around 42 lectures have happened since 1963, commemorating him by various high-profile people, which includes many judges, Swamijis, chartered accountants, economists, who have all come and shared their thoughts on various matters, which I see is mostly about taxation, constitution, and the civilizations as such. So M.R.V. sir is following a very long legacy of great speakers who have come, and I think that when I went through the topics, I found that this is one of the more thought-provoking topics of tax democracy and civilization, which there are a couple of books on this topic, but it is not dealing with tax democracy and there are talks about chartered accountants. We all will know that both of them are very closely interrelated. So I would hand over the mic to Sir. But before that, C.A. Vishnu, who's one of our young chartered accountants who is actually helping SIRC in coordinating for all the programs, he will give us a brief intro of M.R.V. sir, who needs no introduction, but still we would like to know all the nitty-gritties of his achievements. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to introduce Dr. M.R.Venkatesh sir. Dr. M.R.Venkatesh sir is a chartered accountant and also an advocate based in New Delhi, practicing criminal laws, economic offences and serious financial frauds. He is an acknowledged expert in the field of anti-money laundering, anti-black money laws, direct taxes and related regulations. He deals with advisories and litigations relating to the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Prevention of Corruption Act, Income Tax Act, Black Money and Imposition of Tax Act, SEBI Act, FEMA and Fugitive Offenders Act. MRV, as he is popularly known as, became a chartered accountant in 1922 with an All India ranking. In 2018, he was awarded a doctorate for his thesis on evaluating the impact of minimum support price and input subsidiaries on the farm sector in the 4 southern states of India by Sastra University, Tamil Nadu. He is also visiting faculty in various professional institutions, chambers of commerce and universities across India. In addition, he has authored and published several books, including a handbook on anti-dumping, which was released by the former Prime Minister of India, Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee in 2001, a monograph on capital account convertibility, which was published in July 2006, as well as one on inflation, which is published in 2007. A book titled Sense, Senses and Sentiment in 2011, and another titled Dr. Manmohan Singh, A Decade of Decay in 2013. He is also a regular panelist for primetime shows on national television and a well-recognized columnist in leading media publications in India. His latest work in 2022, titled Retaining Balance, The Eternal Way, has been acclaimed as a path-breaking effort in civilizational economics. Currently, he is authoring a book titled Discovery and Bharat, Christian Constitution in an Hindu Nation. As a gesture of our sincere gratitude and to acknowledge the importance of this occasion, I request Vice Chairperson C.A. Revati S. Raghunathan to adorn the shawl and present a memento to our Chief Guest, Dr. M.R.Venkatesh. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Dr. M.R. Venkatesh sir to deliver the lecture on tax, democracy and civilization. So over to the speaker.
Respected Chairperson, friends, it gives me a great pleasure to address you on this wonderful evening on a matter on which all of us contemplate, but we don't speak much about it. What is the link between taxes, democracy and civilization? As I entered the Brahmaya Hall, and rather the building, I say Bhavan, my mind races back to the late 80s and early 90s when I used to sit somewhere there in this Brahmaya Hall. At that time it was not AC, it was a bare-bone hall where doyens like Mr. Bhupati, Mr. Manoharan, Mr. Murli, Mr. Shivakumar, Mr. Nagarajan all used to take classes. Some seats were reserved in that area for me. So whenever we used to be there, we used to create ruckus with all these people, in the sense ask very, very tough questions, and to be very fair to them, they used to answer with a very cheerful mind and very, very pleasant way of dealing with turbulent youngsters, I would call. And one seat was reserved for me in the library. In those times we didn't have the wares and means of even buying some books. So we used to come and sit in the library, and of course we didn't study much, but the biggest thing was we used to help a lot of other students overcoming their difficulty. It could be free for all. It could be somebody coming and asking questions in costing, somebody doing on accounts, auditing, taxes. Sometimes when I remember I solved a problem for senior who was in the final when he was in the inter, and he was very helpful, and he was very, very cognizant of the fact that I helped him a lot in solving it. I still remember it was a holding company problem. Just come in the holding part of it, final part of it. So it was fun all along, but there was some seriousness attached to it, and probably this institute, I always say, even in one of my latest interview which was published a couple of days back, I recognize the fact that the chartered accountancy course gives you that 360 degree of knowledge and understanding of the world which no other course, no other shall I say professional qualification can give you. You can talk on economics easily, you can talk about, except probably brain surgery, I think we have conquered everything else, and it is easy. And I can say there are several chartered accountants who have turned lawyers, and I don't see any lawyer turning into a chartered accountant. So that tells you a lot as to how difficult it is to pass this exam and how much of a rigor that we undergo. And that has put me in good stead. So I thought before I begin, let me pay my respects and regards to the institute and the alma maters that have guided me. Now, as far as taxes are concerned, I'll give you an analogy from Aesop's parables. And one of them which we have fed during our growing years, or we are told, is the story of the ant and the grasshopper. The ant works during summer. It stocks its food for the winter. Winter comes, the ant has got enough food for feeding itself, its own family during winter. On the other hand, we are shown a dancing grasshopper, not Bharatanatyam as you alluded to. The grasshopper was supposed to have danced during summer, not cared, not stored. Summer comes in, winter comes in, it freezes of cold, it has no food, it dies. So the story is taught to us the virtues of saving, hard work, everything. But today, if this has happened, the Hindu will write, grasshopper shivering, ant having enough food, is representative of inequality in our economy. NDTV will question, show a mic in front of a freezing grasshopper and say, how do you feel? State government will announce CM scheme, the central government will announce Prime Minister scheme, grasshopper bachao andolan. Okay. And next budget there will be a GST surcharge on grasshoppers. Grasshopper surcharge 0.8% or something. We have seen this surcharge business. And this is how I would see taxes coming into this country. It penalizes the disciplined in a way, and it actually subsidizes indiscipline. There is a wonderful philosopher in New Zealand, he's a Jew, and he wrote a book on the power of all this, the civilized. And he says the burden to ensure that you feed the uncivilized, the indisciplined, is always on the civilized. So you have to understand your taxes. Chinna vayasla we are told taxes are you have to pay for roads, taxes are you have to pay for bridges, taxes are for schools, taxes are for defense, taxes are for this, taxes are for that. Today you have privatized so many things, even roads, you have go by toll roads. Now I do not know why do we pay taxes for toll roads. We don't pay toll roads. You know, roads are being built and tolls are being collected. Schools, so many things the private sector takes care. And that was what was the idea of reforms in 1991. When we said the state intrusion will come down, and by 97 we had at maximum marginal rate of 30% in the Chidambaram's budget of 97. Somewhere down the line that didn't work. And we thought we have to increase the taxes, and somewhere down the line we also thought that the tax to GDP ratio has to increase. And what was around 16-17% till say 2010, 12, 14 has now increased to 20%. The tax to GDP ratio, you were talking about direct taxes in several countries. In Scandinavia and many other countries, you will find that the tax GDP ratio goes well beyond 50%. Why? because the whole setup, that it is not only the government, it is the sociological setup that compels people to pay taxes, because there is an umbilical cord between the society and the state, and that is called taxes. Taxes are the umbilical cord. Like a mother and child, it is how you define the citizenry, how you define the state. Now, in the US IRS headquarters, you will find this famous statement: taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. And this was by a quote by US Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. And it is often quoted that the taxes are the price that you pay for civilization. But nobody asked this justice, tell me one civilization that has been developed by the state. One civilization that has grown by taxes. You can build roads by taxes. You can build schools by taxes. You can give social security by taxes. But civilization by taxes, I personally believe that probably Justice Holmes took a great leap of faith, and somewhere the balance sheet doesn't agree. And there is a hole in the balance sheet, that you cannot create civilizations through taxes. You can create everything else by taxes, whatever is physical. Civilization is something much bigger. I will come to that, and I will come to that shortly. But you will also agree with me that this proposition can be tested in the 90 years of British rule between 1857 and 1947, when they were ruling us. And the tax rates were one of the most exorbitant, and they looted us for 90 years. And that taxes, according to a well-known economist, Ushta Patnaik, for that 90 years, in current day dollar terms, it is around $50 trillion. If I have to put $50 trillion in perspective, today our economy is around 4 trillion. We are talking about 12 to 15 years of India's annual income that has been looted by the British in 90 years. They looted it predominantly through taxes. And it is staggering that we don't even recognize the impact. And if taxes were the way to glory, after so much of taxes, India must have been the most prosperous economy in the world in 1947. In fact, there is a study by Angus Madison and Paul Byrock. Both of them have gone about dealing with how much money was available in great nations over 2000 years, beginning Christ, and the GDP they have calculated. India had a share of around 18% of global GDP till 1770. India and China put together always had a share of around 50 to 60% during this period of 17th, 18th centuries. Only after 1770, both China and India started falling, and our fall was as low as to 1% of global GDP in the year 1947. So if taxes were to help us to grow as a civilization, Indian civilization must have prospered by 1947 because of the British. British or Indian taxes has no differentiation. In the sense, tax or a tax or a tax. Now, why should I say that the British taxes are different from the Indian tax? So the question is, it is not only the taxes, it is also how do you use the money arising of the taxes that builds a country, and building a country finally leads to civilization. That link nobody talks about, and that is why I think we are getting into a problem understanding our tax mechanism. So the matter comes to 1947. In 1947, there was a debate in the Constituent Assembly. As you know, December 1946, the Constituent Assembly starts debating on the new constitution for independent India. Though the independence comes only on 15th August, they already start the work. And by November 1947, there is a committee which was supposed to give a report on the taxes for India, independent India, how should we tax. That was with a member whose name is Nalini Ranjan Sarkar, and she started her work on 17th November and finished it within 20 days, not even 20 days. and it was December 5th, 1947, she gives a report. And she says all taxes will be with authority of law. This is exactly the words that were there in the 1935 Government of India Act by the British. So we never thought that the wordings are not important. What is important is Nalini Ranjan Sarkar's committee did not think about what could be the extent and contours of the state, how much we are going to spend, what is that we will interfere, where is that we will not interfere. And we said we will be a welfare state. At that time, socialism was not in the constitution. And on November of 1948, Ambedkar makes a very strong plea that India should not be a socialist economy. We should never believe in binding the future generations to any economic policy that they would like to eschew. So you leave the economic policy, you just be an enabler of what you can do. And Article 265, if I recall correctly, goes about to say that no taxes will be collected without the authority of state. Now, the question is it not a rehash of the British state or what I will say is the British taxation regime? Here is a member who says on these recommendations, consequently the output in the form of a report by this committee was a rehash of the Government of India Act. Therefore, the charge that taxation regime of independent India is merely an extension of the taxation regime of the colonial India is not entirely without any bias. This paradigm was captured by B.A. Das, a member of the Constituent Assembly in 1947, when he said, I was very glad to hear from my friend Sri Ramsamy Mudaliar speak about provincial revenues and income. He was a party before 1933 to the distribution of taxation under the 1935 Act. It's galling to me that honorable members of this House should try to perpetuate the taxation arrangements under the 1935 Act. What is the basis of that Act? That Act gave all powers and all resources to a foreign government. The devil of a foreign government has quit India, but the devil's system still continues. Very powerful statement in the Constituent Assembly. These are not ordinary words. These are very prophetic words. And if you take the 1922 Act and read provisions of the 1922 Act to the 1961 Act, 1922 Act has the uncanny resemblance to the Income Tax Act of the British. British Income Tax Act 1922 is the same one in the 1961, and the new bill which was introduced a couple of days back is nothing but a rehashed ChatGPT version of the 1961 Act. Only thing, it has been given a very simple task: convert active voice into passive voice and passive voice into active voice. It is actually a Renan Martin grammar book. Okay, you can teach English grammar. Now the question is, we have not yet decided why there should be taxes. Again I repeat, this is a very important thing. Why there should be taxes, and where should it be spent, and who should be taxed and why. In fact, there are several provisions in the Constitution. In fact, my latest book is on that. But several provisions in the Constitution. If you take the 1935 Act on the left hand side and put the 1950 Constitution on the right hand side, compare word to word, it is virtually a cut, copy, paste exercise. Honestly speaking, if you had a word provision in your computer, today it could have been done in 2 or 3 hours. All that you have to do, cut and paste, find the word search, remove certain words and add certain words, and you could have had it done. Unfortunately, we are taking something out of the system and putting it into our system without understanding what it is. I was fortunate enough to work with Sri Gurumurthy ji several years ago, and I continue to do so. And he pointed out very interesting that the 10% limit on ATG is there in the 1961 Act. You will find that this 10% has not been amended. 10% remains 10% from the 61 Act. I am not sure whether it is there in the new Act, but ATG 10% is there in the 61 Act. Nobody has raised it to 12%, 12.5%, 7.5%. Nobody has tinkered with it. And that owes its existence to the 1922 Act. That owes its existence to the British Income Tax Act. That owes existence to Christian belief that you should donate 10% of your income to charity to be a true Christian. Now, I am not saying that you should not be a true Christian, you can be a true Christian. But why not say if somebody wants to give the entire income as donation, subject to limits, why should it not be allowed as an exemption under ATG? Now if I give 100% of my income to some charitable institution, why not, if subject to other things, 12A, other things being there, why should I not get 100% deduction? Why should it be limited and constricted to only 10%? Now if I give 100% of the income, I have to still pay tax. Think of the anomaly that arises, that how can somebody pay tax when he has donated the entire 100% of an income, when you are only restricting it to 10%. Now, at the core of the issue is the Western civilizations are a right-based civilization. They believe in rights, and how this has come about is they have viewed men as, that includes women also, as brutish, as violent, and as somebody who have complete lack of control over their senses. So people like Thomas Hobbes have conjured of a state which is powerful, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. They have decided, or rather the philosophers decided, a state cannot be a meek or a residual one. It must be everywhere. It must guide people, it must put penalty, it must fine, it must deal with people. And it became so much overbearing that people thought that their fundamental rights were getting crushed. And that is how the origin of fundamental rights comes in. So you have fundamental rights to counterbalance an omnipotent, omnipresent state. So you have two type of issues over that is staring at you. One is that the state is omnipotent, and then because it is omnipotent, it enters into every single field, and so you start paying taxes, and then at a philosophical level you find that it is not matching or giving you enough liberty, so you say that I want fundamental rights. So this is the architecture that has come about in the world. Now people can agree with me, disagree with me, but this is a philosophical foundation of the West, where they believe in rights and they don't believe in duties. We are a society, in contrast, we believe in duties, we don't believe so much in rights. We are a society which generally believes in duties, and we are a contradistinct society. It is like fueling a diesel car with petrol or a petrol car with diesel. You are putting a different fuel and hoping that the car will function. This was a question that Gandhiji faced in Hindu Swaraj in 1908, I think the first decade of the 20th century. He wrote his magnus opus Hindu Swaraj, and he says, we therefore have before us in England the force of everybody wanting and insisting on his rights. Nobody thinks of his duty. And where everybody wants rights, who shall give them to whom? I do not wish to imply that they do no duties. They don't perform the duties corresponding to those rights. And as they do not perform that particular duty, namely acquire fitness, their rights have proved a burden to them. So because you are so much asking for your rights, and we have even fundamental right to education. So you want to have children, but you don't want to educate. You want the state to step in and educate, and you have many writs before the court saying that this is a fundamental right guarantee, so I want the state to step in and give education to my children. Mexicans have said, no, if you have a child, it is the duty of the parent to educate the child. See how society views various things in a various ways. It's very interesting. So what Gandhi says, interestingly, was in 1909, and then somewhere in 1947, just before his assassination, months before his assassination, there was one guy called Julian Huxley, the Director General of UNESCO, who asked Mahatma Gandhi to write an essay to a collection of philosophical reflections on human rights. Gandhi says, it's very interesting, I learned from an illiterate but wise mother that all rights to be deserved and preserved came from the duty well done. Duty, or the superset of rights, and rights are a subset of duties. Thus, the very right to live accrues to us only when we do the duty of citizenship of the world. And fascinatingly, the Mahatma was educated on this idea of between right and duties not by any modern political thinkers, sociologists, or anybody else, but his illiterate mother, as he says. And it is appropriate that given such a complex subject, Gandhi never refers to any Swamiji, any philosophy, any religious text, but his wise but illiterate mother, and says all duties are supposed to be the supraset and rights supposed to be read below the duties. But if you read our constitution, the word duty is missing. There are n number of chapters on rights which are justiciable, as you know. I can go to the court center, part 3 of the constitution. Part 4A of the constitution was introduced in emergency 1975, and we had fundamental duties which are at best ornamental pieces in our constitution. They are neither having any force of law, neither has it any grand value. All that you have is a list of rights that will say you have to stand up during national anthem. That's all. So we have a set of rights. This is for a country which civilizationally believed that karmanyavadikarasya ma phalecha kadachana. This is the civilizational dimension that we have. That at every point in time when we talk about ourselves at a personal level without involving the state, we always talk about our duty. Duty to our parents, duty to our children, duty to our teachers, duty to our family, duty to our friends, duty to our neighbors, duty to unknown people also. But when it comes to involving, as you said, to the state, we think it is our right not to pay tax. Or words to that effect. Everybody has a diffidence in trying to say that taxation are the most difficult thing to do, because you are forcing to pay something out of your hard labor to the government, and you believe that that is something that is not civilizationally done, because there is no duty of the government. Government also got a right. They can arrest you, they can do this, they can do that, they have a right to do this, they have a right to do that, but there is no fundamental duty of the government. So you have mixed two wrongs: fundamental rights of the people, fundamental rights of the government, and two wrongs we said will make a right. It doesn't make it. Two wrongs make a wrong only. Two wrongs cannot make a right. That is what is all about. Now, you had said something very interesting and very thought-provoking. Where is democracy in taxes? That's a very important point. I thought I should dwell on it also. Pure play democracy comes from the word demos and krisi, or whatever is it pronounced in Greek. Whereas the Romans were very clear it must be republic. There are people like Professor Dahl, who works on constitutions around the world. He says there is no distinction between democracy and republic. But if you find in our constitution preamble, we are a democratic republic. It's a very funny thing. Are we using one word more than what is required? Is it tautological? If one means the same thing as the other, then we are not using it properly. We are using it as a superfluous one. My understanding of republic is, group of people decide he is my leader, then you have a choice to elect that leader. For instance, Republican Party comes to a conclusion that Mr. Trump will be our leader. Democratic Party comes to a conclusion that Kamala Harris will be the leader. That is the Republican Party. Can I get some water? Yeah. The deep state is working. The moment I said something about Trump, I'm getting cough. So, in a Republican system, you don't elect the leaders directly as what you may believe. In a democracy, you tend to use your vote to elect the leader. That is why they say grassroots democracy. They don't use the phrase grassroots republicanism. So luckily in ICA it is both grassroots and all the way up there it's democracy. So the point here is democracy is the will of the people. Republican is to limit the will of the people to a choice by an elite. This elite somewhere down the line in 1947 to 1949 probably decided that the only way to govern India, including its taxation system, was to follow the British system, and we will go ahead with the British system so that we don't do much of a change, and we retroactively fitted our independence movement to the administrative system left over by the British. That is why the 1935 Act becomes the 1935 Government of India Act substantially is plagiarized, picked up and put as the Constitution of India. Not my words, it is Ambedkar's words on November 4, 1948. He says, I am not ashamed that we have plagiarized. In fact, we have done it, he says. And he says we have done it in full force because this is the right way to do it. Now in that, if you see what Nalini Sarkar says or what somebody finds in how to arrange your administration or your judiciary, everything is of the pre-British vintage. And that we picked up without realizing that we are a civilization. So we are a democracy only to a limited extent, but when it comes to republicanism, we are a full-fledged republic, meaning that we have left the burden of thinking to an elite which has arrogated itself to believe what is good for you, what is good for me. We have not participated. In fact, the only time we participate in economics is in the first week of February, when we all become economists and pass our view on the budget. Endha edathla kadachalum seri, endha channel, endha medium kadachalum seri, all of us instantly, from the milkman to the vegetable vendor to a real classical economist, everybody turns into an economist to view his view on the economy of the country. Sadly, there is no build-up. Why so much of, shall I say, secrecy involved? When in a democracy is an antithesis of secrecy. Secrecy is an antithesis of democracy. Why can't we have this budget being given to us in September or October, discuss this? And why the views of the chartered accountant should not be taken? Why the views of the lawyers should not be taken somewhere in December? Why the views of the industry should not be taken? We want to do it because the elite thinks this is good for you, take it. Every February 1st you come, say this is good for you, take it. Then we start and saying, if ibdi irukkodadu, but ibdi irukkodadu, institute collect the CP seminars, class by class analysis, all these things are a facade that we are trying to do only to cheat ourselves that we are participating in a democracy when we are not a democracy. We are only a republican democracy. So you must understand where we stand in terms of the structure, overall structure. We are definitely a democracy when it comes to voting. But already whom to elect has been decided by the party. We cannot do much about it. We cannot change the leaders. We cannot change the policies. We cannot change what they want to do, how they want to do. We can change the label from Tweedledum to Tweedledee. That is not democracy. That is fractional democracy, where we are only participating and a huge sense of entitlement comes when we go and vote and take the black ink on our forefinger, take a selfie and post this in Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and say, Jananayaga kadamaiye mudichu vitton. Jananayagame illa anga. It's only in tokenism it is there. And you don't participate in it and you say have a sense of fulfillment. So we have to go back to the, and if you actually want to know, in fact, when you do some proper research, you will find Greek were never the inventor of democracy. Democracy was invented 60 kilometers from here, Uttaramerur. Uttaramerur, you go and see the inscriptions. There is a book written by some professor of Madras University. Brilliant inscriptions. How voting should happen, who will be disqualified, who is qualified, who can vote, when they should vote, if they not vote, what is the consequences. People up to 70 must vote. Children cannot vote, but anybody outside cannot go outside the village when the voting is to take place. These are all there in Uttarameru inscriptions. But today, instead of seeing it as a heritage site, if it were in Rome, they would have made a huge colosseum. Uttarameru would have been declared as some sort of with an international airport of 40 million people coming there. Every year we can have a Kumbh over there. But we are relegating it to some dusty corner where there is hardly anything. You pass by Uttarameru as if it is some dusty shanty town. Uttarameru has seeds of democracy more than 1,200, 1,300 years ago. That is true democracy. That is where people pay their taxes honestly, diligently, because they know what they get in return for the taxes. Where they feel that they are having a dialogue with their leaders. Where they feel that the taxes are high or low. And the government of the day tells them, this is that I am going to do, and there is accountability. And they tell you at every stage where you are going and how it benefits you in your personal, shall I say, enlightenment or your self-development. These are things that sometimes comes so much of a revelation that we are not even aware as to how our own country performed for 5,000 years. We have absolute contempt for anything that the natives had for 5,000 years. Ideally, I would request, since I am coming from on this platform, probably a study of Uttarameru taxation system could be something that you can use and ask the Chengalpattu branch to probably do this study. It is available. It is not that something that they have to go and reinvent. But if they really do this and send it to the Honorable Finance Minister and the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister, this will be a yeoman service as to how alternative mechanism of taxation exists in a democracy. Now, why this happened? It is that somewhere down the line, we wanted to replace the British and not the British system. We were too keen to occupy the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which was the Dalhousie's palace. The Viceroy palace got converted into Rashtrapati Bhavan. But we did not want anything further. I'm sorry. One of the reasons for it is 299 members came to write the Constituent Assembly, of which 284 only signed. 15 did not even sign. And it was a long debate. Enormous amount of issues were discussed. But it was discussed by 284 people who were actually representing 15% of India's population elected at that time. Because the provincial governments were the governments that were electing people, and at that time, because of political expediency, only 299 people came together. And they decided, and they were all men and women of great integrity. It is not to say cast aspersions on them. But 299 people cannot be reflecting a will of future generations. That is why Madison, who was the founding fathers of the American Constitution, says the dead should not govern the living. You cannot have a system and say this is a holy book, I have written it, and this must be something that is for all times to come, and you must go on following it. And this is the first objection the institute must raise when it comes to the new act, that it is the 1961 act rehashed, which is a rehashed version of 1922, which has been borrowed from the British Income Tax Act. So it is the Treta Yugam British Act which is now being passed off as a ChatGPT version. So you must make it a very strong point, and please be blunt about it that you are rehashing it. There is no need to be diplomatic about it. Now comes this author, Sunil Kilnani, who says that there has been enormous amount of debates, no doubt. The Constitution has not been won by the masses in an act of collective self-creation. Indeed, it bore little trace of imaginative concerns of ordinary Indians. Rather, it was a gift of a small set of India's elites. Its drafters were chosen by indirect election on a narrow 14% franchise from electorates set by the British. And this 14% constitution, this 14% system, this 14% ideas, however noble, has come here to stay. And this is where I think probably a bold assertion that this is being picked up from the 61 Act should be backed by how, say, Uttaramerur did its taxation. Something which Uttaramerur is probably our treasured destination on which we can see. So, a constituent assembly which thought that it was the elite which has the right to talk about the constitution at a very macro level. What to say about Income Tax Act, which is a subset of one article of so many articles of the constitution is basically written there, and as I said, there was not even a debate as to how much we should tax. So we have to understand that the war cry during the independence was Swaraj. And Swaraj was not only something that Tilak gave us as a war cry to understand. It was not freedom of political dimensions alone. It had multi-dimensional understanding of India, its own psychology, its own people, its own ethos, and its own civilizational value. Swaraj was not limited to using the words as a political instrument of getting away from the British rule. And that is why at most times Swaraj was identified as cleansing of the self, or rooted to self. Political dimension of Swaraj is a different thing, but Swaraj by itself meant something to do with self. In fact, two of the greatest epics that dominate us psychologically is Mahabharata and Ramayana. The original name of Mahabharata was Jaya, which became Bharata and then Mahabharata over a period of time. Jaya was no reference to the former chief minister. It was meant to conquer yourself. Jaya means conquering self. Vijaya means conquering others. Jaya was what was embedded in our psychology, that all problems can be solved by self. Everything is between your 2 ears, 6 inches of 2 ears. That is what you need to solve. And Jaya was always a battle of yourself. And that is what appealed to the masses. That is what we are. That is what we are, a duty-based society. A duty-based, and that comes from duty. We have a duty, as I said, to everybody. And India is the only constitution where you have Article 1 which confuses you. India, that is Bharat. Now, Anand Engire Appu. Now, how can a country have two different names? And India is referred on all other articles except Article 1, which says India, that is Bharat. Whenever we become Bharatiyas, we talk about civilization. We talk about, mostly in our Tamil or Telugu or any other language, we talk about civilizational ethos. We talk about a civilization that is 5,000 years old, 8,000 years old. We go to Kumbh Mela, we go to Tirupati, we do this, we do that. But when we come to being Indians, we say passport, we say Aadhaar card, all that involves with the state. So we are like that movie where Vikram has dual personality disorder. What is that movie's name? Yeah, Onion. We are onions in our own country, in the sense we are still not yet realized who we are. We are a set of people who believes that there is a set of rules, that there is some good amount of thinking that has gone towards it. Every rule has to be challenged, not because that they have been done by somebody with some good intent, whether it suits us. And that is what is democracy all about. The democracy is not to say that we will suit that particular rule and this will be the difficulty. This is our problem. We have started adjusting to every draconian rule. Instead of cutting the leg to shoot the shoes, we should try and see whether we make a shoe that will suit our leg. We are not doing that. And in fact, I must say again, with great amount of respect to the Chartered Accountant Institute, the complaints fetish has somehow overgripped us. We must somehow challenge. The researcher in us are dying. The compliance fetish is overtaking us. You will give this new act, we will start complaining, we will make some noises for the next 10 days. Then we will say how to file forms, how to do this. Instead of ITR1, there will be ITR X, ITR Y, and we will start complying, telling our clients, and go about it. The lawyer profession does not do that. The lawyer profession is a consistent challenging. Every damn thing we challenge. That's why I like this profession in one way. There are several pitfalls. I'm not saying one against the other, especially in my alma mater, to which I owe the greatest of respect. But I'm saying, as a group, the lack or inability, or refusal, I would not inability, it's actually the refusal to challenge. Absolutely. And I want the new bill. Luckily, when I gave this topic, the new bill was not there. That I'm just dovetailing the whole idea here, that whether a civilizational state like India requires an income tax that owes its origin to British India. That's the first question. Are we having the levers of decision in the way a democratic setup would give in the lines of, say, Uttarameru? How would Uttarameru tax itself? The classical Indian way of doing things would be available there. But no, we say very immediately we try to put a comparison between the old act and the new act. That's very easy. That can be done by anybody here. In the sense, a junior in my office has already done, and it is available. Otherwise, somebody is putting on the YouTube and giving you free of cost. That's not the issue here. The issue is how much will it be amended? Can the government give us an assurance that there will be tax amendment holidays for the next 5 years after the new law comes in? There should be no amendment. That will give a settled view of law. Why there should be? No other country does this amount of amendments year after year after year. This time 83 amendments or 73 amendments. Yanna kuda varala. And you say that next week I am going to come with a new bill. And you are going to disband this act, and you are going to come with a new bill, and yet you are putting 83 amendments. It is not good for a country. And a tax is some promise by the government that I will only collect this much. And will there be a promise that there will be no retrospective amendment? We have to see whether retrospective amendments were done by our people in yesteryears. You say this is not a tax. What is that GST case, resorts case? First you say and the or. We are the only country which has amended or interpreted and as or. And in PMLA section 3, we have interpreted and as or. In GST, we have interpreted or as and. We cannot be doing this. We are becoming a sense. We are too important a player in the global field. We are not only 3 trillion. We are having enormous science and technological prowess. We are having our people, whether if you go to Dubai or whether you go to New Jersey or to Singapore, you find our people. When I say our people, chartered accountants, MBAs, engineers, taking the pole position in many corporates, doing extraordinarily well, and we are respected world over. But if somebody sees this type of amendments happening to our income tax year on year on year, they will find that India is some sort of a country which can be linked to Sudan or Angola or any African country, third world African sub-Saharan country, where the rule of law does not prevail. The rule of law is too sacrosanct. That is why our people, when the kings used to take our position, after his oath he will say, I am the greatest. And the priest will come with the dandam and hit him thrice. The danda is above you, danda is above you, danda is above you. Danda is not the dandam actually, it is the law. The law must be held sacrosanct. We are toying with laws, 83 amendments, and I think 1961 Act has undergone 14,000 amendments. 14,000 amendments. Think about it. This is how we have dealt with our tax laws. And we are a civilization state. Please understand, we may call ourselves socialist, democratic, secular republic, having fraternity, equality, justice, all those 80 words, high-standing words. But how we behave at the international forum is watching us. Today we are not some $200 billion economy. We add per year, every year, almost we add one Pakistan to our GDP. We must be proud about it, but we must also be responsible. It is not something that we stand up and say that we are, tout the numbers and be done with it. We are some sort of a civilization. So that brings me to the final stage, that at every twist and turn, the West believes, and there is a book by Charles Boyce titled Born Bad. And he says Western civilization believes everybody is born bad. First, Vivekananda says every soul is divine. See the contrast. Swami Vivekananda says every soul is divine. Whereas they believe everyone is a sinner. And they believe that your sinning is only through, the cleansing of your sinning comes from the external agent. You cannot internally cleanse yourself. There is no self, an external agent. And Charles Boyce gives a list of, scientists: Hobbes, Marx, Adam Smith, Sigmund Freud. You can name n number of them. And he says all their discoveries or their achievements or their suggestions or their scientific papers were always posited on something out. In India, you say you do meditation. Simple. All our saints said your problem is within yourself. And you start doing prayers, you will get a solution. Whereas they said, no, you are a sinner. And so your answer is that you should go to the state. Hobbesian state by Hobbes. Oh, you have a problem with the market, so the market will behave like this. Adam Smith. Richard Dawkins in evolutionary biology, he says it is the selfish gene that is creating the problem. You take anybody, all their researchers will be an outside world. Now we are in a clash of civilization, not in the way Samuel Huntington would have said. The clash of civilization is we have borrowed that engine, the constitutional makeup, the setup, because we decided we have to tax. We have to tax. Why do you have to tax? Because man is bad, so we require an omnipotent state. We require an omnipotent state. How do we fund it? So we go to the same people, tax them, and say that we will allow you to rise civilizational taxes or a price that you pay for civilization. Now the West has realized this is not working. That is why Trump says, I will get rid of income tax. In fact, there is one lecture you can probably organize if you get a good economist. It is about the economic policies of Javier Milei, who is the Argentinian president. He has recently taken over in 23 November. He goes to a room and puts all the departments that is there in the government, and he says, oh, this is sports ministry, close it. Then he says, this is culture ministry, close it. This is SMSC ministry, okay, keep it. Next one, this is steel ministry, close it. Like that he has gone about, it is in the video. He goes and closes ministries after ministries, and he says the state has to withdraw so that the individuals can blossom. And this is what we require today. We require the government not only to reduce taxes, because if it doesn't reduce expenses, it is going to borrow from the same people. A tax reduction cannot be supported, especially by chartered accountants, because it will not balance the books unless you cut expenditure. And the expenditure cut has to happen in significant manner. Can anybody in this hall tell me whether you have done any business with the steel ministry? You are all chartered accountants. You would not even know who is the steel minister. We would not know who is the cultural minister, who is the minister for textiles. What is it that you have got to do? When your exports are lower than Bangladesh, textile ministry can be shut off. We unfortunately are spending crores of rupees, billions of rupees, trillions of rupees, only having ornamental pieces of ministries, when these ministries have to be shut. So it is not Trump. Trump, unfortunately, is very, shall I use the word, dazzling for all of us because of the might of America. But the original guy who thought about all this closing of ministries, and he has bailed Argentina out of a huge crisis just in 12 months. That means you are lowering taxes. That means you are giving respect to the ant, and that means you are not giving any subsidy or any type of indiscipline. You are not encouraging the indiscipline of the grasshopper. These are all linked, and civilizations are built by entrepreneurs, by professionals, by farmers, by teachers, by artists, not by bureaucrats. No government has ever built a civilization. Governments have destroyed civilization. They have the nuking power to destroy civilization, but they cannot create a civilization. In fact, the Roman Empire, because Rome never says it's a civilization. Rome says it's an empire. And even that empire fell over a period of time. It fell in 1600 years. They had all the power. They had all the laws. They conjured everything. They, in fact, Swami Vivekananda says it is one of the golden periods of mankind, or words to that effect. It pays rich encomium to the Roman Empire. But Roman Empire finally fell because they started this grand idea of taxing people, giving subsidies of bread and oil, and of course the Colonial. Instead we have subsidies, we have this yojana, that yojana, which are all bojanas for the babus, and then we have IPL. And all these things, if you put together, is that we will never prosper as a civilization unless we speak the truth. We have the courage to speak the truth. Unless we start saying that this is wrong, instead of finding out how this is good, instead we do a thorough audit of these things. Unfortunately, we are not. And once we start doing this, I think we will have a greater role to play. Otherwise, we are like the IPL cheerleaders, only to say what is good and what is bad. We are not here to tell this. We have to structurally demolish these things. We have to debate these things and say why the new tax regime has to follow something which is far more suited to the genius of this country, far more rooted to this civilization, far more important. I am not saying that. I have had enough debates with economists, including somebody like Dr. Subramanian Swamy, where he says abolish income tax. I say we can't abolish income tax. The issue is not the tax. The issue is what do you do with that money. The issue is not per se income tax. You can even have 100% if you take care of everything that I wanted. I want a car. If the government says today you want a car, you will get a car. If you want to fly business class, you will get a business class. I don't require any money. But governments cannot work like that. So it cannot pander to my wishes. So finally it has to tax my income at some rates. But what rate? Say 30%, 35%. Why that 35%? It cannot be a quota figure pulled out of thin air. Why 35%? Nobody knows. 30% mele irkuda sir tax. Why? Why not 20%? Why not 15%? No idea, sir. Why should it not be 15%? Why should it be taxed at say 12 lakh rupees? 87 years 12 lakh rupees tax for other. Why 12 lakhs? Why not 15 lakhs? Why not 5 lakhs? No answer. It is all whims and fancies where we don't participate in the debate. So this raises a very important question that we must debate, and I am sure the institute will probably, in memory of Vaidyanath Aiyar, not obviously hitting to my request, at least in the memory of Vaidyanath Aiyar, I request you, madam, that please organize these type of lectures instead of saying whether TDS Katnama, Vanama, Enga Portal, enna problem. This we have seen enough of it. We can think something. We are far greater intellectuals. It is giving a problem to us is to basically reduce us to basically data entry operators. We are capable of something far better, and I hope in the memory of the great Vaidyanath Aiyar, we will at least start debating in the room, if not outside. Thank you very much for a very patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Sir, institute is in close touch with the government and all. So why not these questions were in the institute mind? Why it has still not got discussed? You
should ask it to her. She is the institute. You are asking the right question to the wrong person. Okay, that is why even I am pleading the same thing. Please discuss. I am not saying I am capable of not discussing. I am capable of discussing. I am discussing wherever it is possible.
Sir, you are at the right spot, sir. You are in Delhi, and end of the day, the connections matter, sir.
Sir, all those அதுதான் சொல்றேன். This is not the way of doing things. Connections matter is you can give it, you can probably accelerate, but the question even on can I move away from the topic? Whenever I discuss something like NAFRA, people say institute is not bothered about it. Why are you bothered? It has to come. See, it is a painful process, but it is a productive process. I can go give a representation to somebody and say this is what it is, take a photo, come back and put it in my Twitter, I'll get 3,000 likes and 40,000 forwards. I don't want that. If truly something has to happen, and it can happen, I'm telling you, only when the Institute of Chartered Accountants comes with something original and tells the government. When is it, sir, we have produced something original? Tell me. Let's do a frank talk. What is the accounting standard or any document that the world says that ICA has given, it is one of the standard of the world, so we should follow? Tell me one paper, one standard, one document. We have become a compliance mindset and we have become clerical in our approach. This is not what we were when we are 4 lakh members, madam. 4 lakh members. Out of 140 million people, 140 crores, we are 4 lakhs today. Just 4 lakhs. We have passed one of the toughest exams in the world. There are chartered accountants who have turned doctors, lawyers, scientists, whatever you want, I can do. But yet when it comes to our own profession collectively, on something we are lacking. I am very frank about it. In the hall irundhu nariya na pesiten. See, my giving to somebody just because I am in Delhi, passing it off is not the issue. It will be thrown into the dustbin the moment I go out of the room, or even before me. But if the institute gives and says we have come out with a paper critical about how, I am not saying criticize for the sake of criticism, critical analysis of the new tax bill will do a great service to the nation than saying please remove 32 here, put it, this judgment is not working, and say this is what it is. That is not why we should have this income tax. First of all, what is the methodology of taxation? What you are putting, why should we not demand as, there is a charter there in the new bill, why not go through the charter and improve it? All these things require people collectively deciding. Only institute can do it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That will have weight. I presume there are no questions. Thank you.
I think you should not be disappointed that there are no questions. Everyone is still thinking. It's a very thought-provoking. Okay, whatever.
I said let us not waste somebody's time.
Yeah, actually, very, very, very thought-provoking, and I do agree that as a profession, we should make our representations. But here I just want to share with the members, we send out emails, WhatsApps, we send out through the journal. It's there on our website. We send out discussion papers, we call for opinions, and we use every method available to reach out to the members and ask them to give their opinion, go through any discussion paper which comes. Okay, now this income tax bill, I'm a member in so many WhatsApp groups where so many comparisons are being done, but no one has actually come out with any dissent. I would say, apathy is the word I generally use for us as a country, as a population. we are very apathetic. You know, we take challenges up to a certain stage in life. I want to do CA. It's a very tough exam. Okay, I'll clear it. We all clear the exam. But what happens to the initiative after that? Every individual, all of you would have gone through all of us have gone through the same struggles to clear this examination. We took it as a challenge. We cleared chartered accountant. But then after that, what happens? Life takes over. Okay, we are so busy, like Sir says, meeting our compliance schedules, living our life. The state is not going to take care of our lives. The government is definitely not going to take the taxes and say, okay, boss, you've given taxes, I'll take care of, I'll buy the car which you ask for. No, we are all busy with our lives. What we should do is set aside a little time. Just a little time. One instance which had a huge impact when the scheme of education was changed, we sent so many emails. I myself shared in so many WhatsApp groups, broadcasts, asking, send your opinion about this change in the scheme of education. You will not believe MCA does not accept anything which goes from a professional body. Okay, all these tax matters it will go, but they also see how many people have assented, dissented, given their opinion, how many people have actually accepted. So they see the number of people. There will be hardly a few hundreds, tens, 20 people who have actually logged on to the MCA website and given their opinion on any standards, any discussion papers, change in education. It's all in the public domain. Nobody does it. But when we sit here and somebody provokes us to think, we say, okay, we should have done this. But the moment we step, including me, the moment I step out of this room, something else which is of immediate priority takes over. Okay, I may be thinking of this, I've noted down points. Maybe I'll use it tomorrow when I'm talking, or when I am, like, for reflected glory, I say, MR, we told this and I will tell this. But how exactly am I going to take it forward? See, in this room, we are all lucky enough to sit here and listen to Sir talking about how democracy, taxation, civilizations are so how they are all interconnected. But how exactly are we going to take it forward? We are not actually, I tell you what happens is, after a certain stage, the curiosity in us dies, we become apathetic. We just want to say, okay, I want to go on with my life. Are we all really the change makers which we project ourselves to be? See, we are very proud to say we are carrying the country forward. GST collections was so many lakhs of crores. Because of us, 2047, India, Viksit Bharat, we are going to be a great partner to that. We are partners in nation building, as Abdul Kalam told. But no, we are just, repeating whatever somebody says. We are actually not working towards it. What I feel is, as Sir said, all of us, it's a collaborative effort. All of us have to collaborate. Uttarameru tax system, I would really love to take it forward. If the people in this room come along with me, we can all do a study on it. Let us form a study group. Somebody tell me, come, we'll form a study group, we'll take Sir's help. Let's do it. That is a contribution which we are going to do. Apart from GST is going to be collected. Whether we are going to enable it or not, government will ensure that they get it. Somewhere, something, because someone knows if I don't pay today, I have to pay penalty tomorrow. That is going to take care of itself. Your juniors can take care of it. Let us do this study. We'll form a study group. We can give something, which the government can work upon. So, thank you very, very much, Sir. I really have noted down quite a bit of whatever you said, and very, very thought-provoking. I really did not expect this kind of talk on democracy and civilization, especially tax democracy. I always believed that direct tax, I have a very rudimentary economic knowledge. I thought that direct tax collections, as the direct tax collections increase, your country is going to go into the developed status. What I read is what I am actually repeating here. But this radical view of scrapping income tax is something which I have never thought about. And I also wanted to actually appreciate what you said. The government is not actually giving us a warranty on the tax laws. They are anyway going to keep on amending it. So, the longer that the warranty period for any product is, that it's not going to have any defect. But if a warranty is given for 1 year, only 1 year, you take that product and see after the 366th day, it will start giving you problems. Okay, it's something like that. So that is also another trigger which I thought, actually, yes, why is it amended so much? Amendments can happen because of various, like a technical issue or something like that. But your basic law should not change. I think that is something which we should all take away. Thank you very, very much, sir. Hopefully, from this group, we will do one Uttaramera tax study group. We will give the presentation and you will lead us on this. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.